God and the devil look at us like a coin toss. Heaven and hell is separated by a loincloth. I used to pray at night. Never thought I'd get to heaven, was afraid of heights. And I've been sinning, God. I need a church, mosque, and synagogue. Man, I've been sinning, God. I need a church, mosque, and synagogue. Be still and know I'm here. Perfect love casts out all fear. Love is not emotion. Love is not a feeling. Love is forgiving. True healing. Hallelujah. They bump this in Shibuya. Japanese denim. Masato with the moolah. I'm the ruler, the new slick Rick. Hassan, thank God. It's more than a pick. Follow this, you ain't gotta be a friend of me. With this love, I even love my enemy. The only one speaking truth, public enemy. With rap so Chuck D, it's like a memory. Top billing, restore the feeling. And if you have anger, you're a murderer, killing. Humans judge vices, God judge the heart. Overcome the world, that part. Now we got perfect peace. Everything we ever need. Kill the ego before it kills me. Let the true me be free. All thoughts are lies, man, it's in your head. 7 deadly sins, you the walking dead. Purified, fly like a dove. The absence of hate, love.
Yeah, we gonna walk on water here. As Hassan said on the moon, walking on water.
Ooh, wow.
God and the devil look at us like a coin toss. Heaven and hell is separated by a loincloth. Wow, 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 wow. Welcome to the show, Walking on Water with Hassan. What a day, what a day. In the beginning, there was the word. We are here. Nice anticipation build-up video for you guys right there, you know. Had to get the blazer on, Steve Harvey, and had to, you know, get it right. So, amazing. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 1. This is the first show. I want to start off by saying thank you to Jesse. Grateful for the opportunity. It's amazing that he shares his platform, his audience, and every day his wisdom, you know, with us and with all of you. So just super grateful and want to say thank you to Jesse, you know, first and foremost. Yeah, you know, basically, I know we just started and I don't want to come off like, you know, I need money, but I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff on this show. You know, a lot of aliens, UFOs, a lot of New World Order, you know, Illuminati stuff. You know, a lot of serious stuff. I got documents. You know, I got a lot of documents here, a lot of serious stuff. But, you know, I will, not today necessarily, but I will need support, you know. So I just set up on my own, all by myself. I set up my buymeacoffee.com/wowhassan. So, you know, I don't want to be saying this, but if you want to get to the real stuff what we're going to be covering, you know, that's going on, I need support, you know, and it's not just for Blazers. It will be for, you know, research, you know, and stuff to get you guys the real info. Like aliens. I have a hard take on aliens. This is called Walking on Water. The aliens aren't up top. The aliens are underwater. You see what I'm saying? So if you want more breaking news, stuff like that, you know, donate so we can keep this rolling. Because it's the first show, because it's the first day, I said, you know what? What better guest? You know, when I had the pleasure to guest host for Jesse a while back, maybe some of you saw that, I brought on Ted Nugent, the Detroit Motor City Madman. Interviewed him. It was my first interview, so pretty difficult to wrangle him together for an interview. And because he's just, you know, he's shooting machine guns worth of information. But that was so amazing to be able to interview him. And I really enjoyed that day of guest hosting. So, again, thank you to Jesse for that. And everyone, thank you to Nick. He's in here helping me, even though he taught me all this, and I don't know it still, so he's here. And everybody. But because it's the first day of WOW, Walking on Water, I said, you know what? How do we start this off? You know, how do we what do we do? How do we let the people in on who Hassan is and, stuff like that? So what better way to start than the Father and I are one? My father, Big Sal, we're gonna call him Big Sal just to keep him safe and not dox him like Hake says, because I don't know, he got real life stuff going on still, so I don't want to dox him if we get too into some crazy stuff here, or if I say something crazy and then it, hinders him. So this is Big Sal, my father. We're gonna bring him in. Hold on here. We're gonna go to. Okay, we're gonna switch over here and we're gonna get the audio.
Hello.
Biggs!
Hey, Sal, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, loud and clear. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to Jesse. Thank Jesse for me and the team over there. Thank you, guys.
Nice, absolutely. Thank you for coming on for the first show.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Exactly.
Great show. Wishing you guys a lot of success and moving forward, getting the message out there. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Biggs. What do you think about this blazer?
A little bright, but it's good. Looks good on you.
I don't get the father approval on this one. You should see the pants.
No way.
But anyway, okay, so let's get into this. I want to just first off by saying, obviously I was born in America. My mother is Catholic. She kind of raised me Catholic and in the church. My father, though, for full disclosure, and we're going to get into it, my father was born in Baghdad, Iraq, of all places. Dad born in Baghdad. And he is a Muslim. And, so we talk frequently and we have, healthy conversation about politics and about religion and, things that we disagree on and things we agree on. But it's good to have the conversation, and still be able to be one, still be Father and the Son are one. So just kind of want to unpack that a little bit. And yeah, so what do you think about that, Biggs?
I like it. I think it's great. I think it's good to have diversity, to have two different thoughts, different backgrounds, and different ideologies, but we can bring them together. It's like the two rivers in Iraq where I was born, the Tigris and the Euphrates. They start at a wide gap in the north, and on the bottom they join together and flow as a one river into the Persian Gulf. So you can have two diverse ideas, but if you can find the common thread among everything else, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all born and we all have to die and answer for what we did. So at the end of the day, we can find the common ground and merge together as one river flowing for humanity.
Amazing. I love that. You see, I got Sandman on the mug here.
I see that. I need to get a...
Oh, you could see it before? You could see it earlier?
No, right now I do.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I see it. I like it.
Yeah, I was going to bring him on for the first show, but I didn't want to disrespect Jesse's place.
No. Looks good. Looking good.
Who let the dogs out? Okay. Nice. So, yeah, I guess tell people about, like, being born in Baghdad, Iraq. You know, kind of that. I know at, what was 7 years old, your father was killed by Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, born and raised in Baghdad. Baghdad is a very ancient city. Those of you that know history, a lot of civilization. It is considered one of the cradles of civilization, Mesopotamia. We have a diversity of Christians, Jews, Muslims, different sects of Muslims, different sects of Christians. So all religions are in Baghdad. You can find old synagogues, old churches, old mosques, the bazaars, a beautiful city, very festive. But in the 60s and 70s, we had a dictator, and unfortunately, our family was a victim to this dictatorship, as many as other people, hundreds of thousands. and we had to suffer. My father was executed. My mother was imprisoned for 2 years in a Iraqi jail, and eventually we fled as refugees into the mountains and then all the way out to Europe and United States. So we're glad to be here. We're thankful to be here. We're blessed to be in America, the greatest land on the face of the earth.
Amazing. So you were technically a political refugee, right?
Correct, correct.
Wow. So how many brothers and sisters?
We were a total of 9. 2 died. Some of them died during the journey, and 1 died as an infant. But the 7 managed to flee together with our mother, and that's how we made it out. So we pray for her soul for bringing us out to safety. She did a magnificent job. God bless her soul.
That's amazing. So let me ask you this. So, and why was that exactly? Because the father or someone was involved in parliament or in the government in Iraq or something?
Yeah, our grandfather, my mother's father was a prime minister at one point in time, which is like the chief executive officer of the country. In the 50s, when it was a kingdom under the royal king, he was appointed as a prime minister. And then after that, in the 60s and 70s, my father joined the opposition to try and bring democracy and freedom to Iraq. And he was working closely with the United States, and he wanted to, and England and Europe to try and bring a Western style democracy, if you could call it one, to Iraq. And he was obviously killed for that, along with hundreds of other people, thousands of other people.
So what was it like? What was it like for you at that young age and kind of growing up, not having your father there?
It was horrible. We had him until I was 7, and then when they came in the middle of the night, I remember it was a cold night. It was either in December or January. Can't remember the exact month. They came into our house. They broke in the middle of the night. Tens and tens of their soldiers, of Saddam's troops, and they drug away my father and mother out of the house. So at that moment, everything changed. So we became somewhat orphans when they killed my father. And then my mother had to spend 2 years in jail. We had to live with family and friends. And eventually when she got out, she took us and we fled. So it was dramatic, traumatic, but as the human spirit can always heal and move above, we can always look back at as an experience, as a test from the Almighty God for us as human beings. He tests us from time to time to see how we deal with those challenges. So it's a blessing at the same time as it was a tragedy, but it's also a blessing.
And at what age exactly were you aware that it was Saddam that, had, or at what age did you even come to awareness of Saddam and that is who was involved in the murder of your father?
It was a few years after that, I would say maybe in the mid-70s, when we had made it all the way out of Iraq, and we ended up traveling through Iran, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, different countries as refugees, and finally made it to Europe. And it was at that time, maybe I would say around 10, 11 years old, my mother explained to us what had happened, who the people were, and exactly the circumstances. So I had a better understanding. I would say around 10, 11, maybe 12.
Amazing. And do you think that at any point or up until this day, do you think you have been able to forgive Saddam?
I can forgive Saddam for what he did only because I believe that ultimately he would have to answer to his creator if he believed in one. So I believe we all as human beings have to answer for everything we did, sooner or later. So judgment comes to each person at different times, but I think he would have to answer why he killed millions of people, just as anybody else who has committed any crime against anybody.
Yeah. Did you
so
ever...
Yes, I have forgiven in the sense that I have forgiven him for what he did to me directly, because I believe we came out at the end of it okay. But the people that actually suffered, it's up to them to forgive him or not. I cannot answer for them.
did you ever have like anger or hatred towards him specifically?
Some anger, some hate at some point in my life, but as I grow older and I realize that everything is in time, everything is in God's time, that God handles everything and takes care of everything in the end. So I relinquished my hate and my anger, and I let God take care of it.
Nice. So let me ask you this: with being able to forgive and kind of have a understanding on it, can you look at it? Can you look at it in any way and say, did Saddam Hussein do anything good?
He did some good. He built some things in Iraq. He kept a lot of the different ethnic groups together, but he did it through force and through brutality. So for some people it may be good, but for the majority of people it was not good. So I cannot tell you that I think he did good, but I'm sure some people in Iraq who benefited from him would tell you he did good. So he did good for some people. To answer the question, if I can.
Yeah, yeah. And so famously, obviously, George Bush and America went
My
to,
guy.
Yeah,
My
I don't
man.
think he's very popular in the because now we kind of see who he really is as like conservatives. We see that all he ever
Right.
was a guy who wanted to paint and go on Jimmy Kimmel.
And I'm sorry, what's the question?
Well, the question is saying that when George Bush and America went in to fight Iraq or whatever and kill Saddam Hussein, what was your feelings on that when that happened? I mean, there was probably a personal victory or maybe that you felt like, oh, this is good. But, yeah, what was your feelings on all that?
Well, it was a very happy day for me. It was a very exciting day for a lot of Iraqis throughout the world because it's a day of that we believe God has sent the United States, and George Bush was obviously the president, to go and finish the job that the father started. Speaking of the father and son, George Bush one started the war, Gulf War I, to kick Saddam out of Kuwait when he invaded Kuwait in 1991. So this George Bush II went in to finish the job and remove Saddam, who had killed and brutalized the Iraqi population for over 20 to 30 years. So it was a happy day for us.
Interesting. So now would you say that why now my question is why I understand your personal reason on that happening, but as far as like America's perspective, why is it that America gets involved in these things? Why do we get involved in these wars? I have a hunch, but I want to kind of see what you think first.
Well, I think George Bush realized that his father should have finished the job the first time, and the Iraqi people were suffering, and he wanted to bring it to closure. So I believe he did it for maybe personal reasons as well as human reasons. But I think the United States does get involved, should get involved, and rightfully so sometimes, to come to the aid of oppressed and suppressed people, because America is, after all, the beacon of democracy and freedom in the world. And we should uphold that and help those that need, as we were helped when we were achieving our freedom from the British in 1776. There were other countries helping us with money and I'm sure with weapons to fight to get America its freedom. And I could be wrong, maybe there wasn't, but from the basic history I studied, there was some help from the French and other people.
Interesting. So my thought is that, we kind of get involved in a lot of these wars. Does Israel have anything to do with encouraging America to get involved in these wars in protection of them or in some sort of kind of cahoots with them?
It's possible that they do have, since they are allies, the United States and Israel. But I think the case for Iraq, where I'm from, where I'm concerned with, I think it was solely a U.S. Decision Also, Saddam was not very nice to Israel. He did send some missiles over to Israel years before that. So maybe they did have some input in trying to punish him, and rightfully so, because no one should be sending anything over to another country and starting a war. So there was a good move on George Bush and whoever agreed with George Bush and the United States. And we thank the United States for removing Saddam Hussein personally and all the troops that were involved. We thank them.
Interesting. Okay. So let me ask you this. So you don't think it had anything to do with Israel, the Iraq War?
No.
What about Syria and all these other places?
Connected to the Iraq War, you mean?
Just in general, of like America getting involved in these places.
Well, we get involved for our interests, to protect our interests and the interests of our allies, whether it's Israel or whoever it may be. And it's okay. Sometimes you have to go to help your friends and allies. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so let me ask you this now. Okay, so now, you're in America and you came to America and a lot of people will come to America and Muslims and everything, and people will say Islam is a conservative religion, like even right now in the red pill, Andrew Tate kind of world, everyone's like, oh, I like Islam because it's based, because, it just seems more like set in something. But the problem is I never really hear them say that they've had like a God experience. They just kind of like the fact that, okay, the women, they can have multiple wives, they can, a lot of this stuff, is really kind of the through line. But let me ask you this. If Islam is really conservative, like a religion, right, then why is it that a lot of them come over here and vote liberal or Democrat and don't really support any conservative values in that sense in America?
Good question. The answer I can tell you possibly maybe most Americans and people in the West don't understand Islam in its full spectrum. They just say Islam and they think it's one group of Muslims. Islam is like Christianity and is also like Judaism, the three Abrahamic religions, in that it's very diverse. It has many schools, many branches, many sects. As when we say Christians, we're including Catholics, Christians, evangelicals, Methodists, Presbyterians, all the different groups. They're all Christians. But if you ask each one of them individually, they say they're not Christians. We are Christians. Same thing with Muslims. You have Sunnis, you have Shiites, you have different schools, different political groups. So we cannot say all Muslims are going to vote in one direction or the other. There are liberal Muslims, there are conservative Muslims, there are middle of the line Muslims. So Islam in general is widespread, just as Christianity or Judaism. But Islam itself, if people were to study the Quran, would find a lot of its tendencies to be in line more with conservative values. Maybe that would answer the question. I'm not sure.
Well, then why are there so many crazy people like Ilhan Omar and these radical, silly people who are Islamic or Muslims or whatever, and they're trying to destroy America and saying that the white man is the problem for everything and Donald Trump is bad and all that stuff? Why they come to America and do all these things that if they tried to do over there, they'd get their head cut off?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I'm not really familiar with that, to be honest. So I don't know, and I can't answer the question.
But see, that's the problem, is that quote unquote good Muslims don't speak up about this bad rhetoric of the bad Muslims that are spreading this kind of stuff. So there needs to be, quote unquote, if there is another sect or another perspective, it needs to be heard, and specifically by people who are, like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? So I understand that if you don't know, you don't know. But I think it's interesting.
I agree, and I think there are people that speak out. However, they are lacking a media outlet. They don't have the media connection, so that's something they have to work on. I think as conservative Muslims or whatever Muslims need to get more involved in media and speak out. And I agree with you 100% to give their point of view of their point, to bring their point across.
Yeah. Do you denounce Ilhan Omar?
I don't know much about anyone to denounce them, so I can't tell you. I can't answer that question.
Okay, I'm just kidding. All right. So let me ask you this. Okay. What do you think about what's going on in France with all the Muslims that are destroying stuff and attacking stuff, just like the Black Lives Matters people?
I think that's more of a
everything?
social. I think that's more of a social, economic problem than a religious problem. I think it's more about the poorer areas and neighborhoods, and that's anywhere in the world. When they feel disenfranchised, they're going to take it up because they're angry, they're young, and they're unemployed. So possibly somebody is misdirecting them to violence and hate. And I think the solution is finding it it's an economic solution. We can help them financially, economically, get them on track to work, to build instead of destroy.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another thing.
And that's throughout the world. By the way. That's in all the areas of the world you find poor people are always someone comes in and takes advantage of them and causes them to do violence and hate.
Yeah. Another thing that I hear a lot from, actually, you've said this to me, that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world.
Correct.
But let me ask you this, though. It's kind of a falsehood that's kind of disguised by saying that. Because what I'm realizing is that it's only really based on birth, people being born because they have a lot of kids. Like, you were
correct.
10 kids or whatever. It's a very low percentage of conversion. More people convert to Christianity than they do convert to Islam. It's really based off of birth being born.
Correct.
But don't you think that's misleading?
It's just a statistical fact from the United Nations and world organizations.
Oh Lord!
I'm just quoting they saying that at the current trend, by the year so and so, Islam will be the dominant religion of the world, based on, as you said, birth and just population growth. So yeah.
What a mess!
It is a mess. But I think we can find common. I think we can look for the common things in all the religions and come together as Abrahamic children of Abraham, the one father of all religions. And
but
come together as people.
I asked you this the other night about the Abrahamic thing, but because Ishmael was born out of wedlock with Hagar, you don't think there's any illegitimacy there?
We don't see it that way. We see one father, Abraham, who had 2 different wives or 3 wives or whatever, and he had different children. They're all blessed. As the Bible says, the Christian and Jewish Bible says, of Ishmael and his descendants, God said, I will make you a great nation, and I will multiply you, and I will make you fruitful. I believe it's somewhere in the Bible. I'm not sure what passage, but it's in there that he told him and to his children that I will make them a great nation. So Ishmael has his people and his religion, and so does Isaac and Israel.
Interesting. So one more thing on the Democrat thing. So again, if you're saying that so you are saying that Islam is based in conservative. It is conservative more than it is liberal.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Does the Quran promote socialism?
Some form of socialism, but not 100% socialism. It does promote equality, justice, no oppression, providing.
Is there any such
needy.
thing as equality, though?
Well, equality in the sense that we cannot have homelessness. We're not supposed to have people who need
Why not?
food and they're unable to work. We have to provide them. If there's somebody sick and they can't buy medical insurance, we have to give them. So the state has to be involved at some point to make sure we don't have social problems. So in that sense, yes, there is socialism, but not to the point where they take your land and take your
But
business and take your
that's
money.
how it always ends up though. Tell me a place where it's worked.
Nowhere. It has the original Islamic or Quranic form of government has never been set up yet. So they don't have it. Nobody has it. So we can't give examples. Maybe for a short duration during the time of the Prophet and his family, but for the most part, no.
And maybe
There was
during,
a
maybe during Stalin.
No, that's communism.
It's the
But
same
during
thing.
but during a brief time in the history of Islam, during the time of Imam Ali, he was one of the leaders of the Muslim nation after the Prophet. They had a government for a short time that was very ideal and very, very close to what it should have been. So people that want to look him up, Imam Ali. He was the cousin of the Prophet, and he married his daughter, and he had the closest form of a good government for the time.
He
only lasted
married
4
whose
years.
daughter?
Muhammad's daughter, the Prophet.
All right. Well, I don't want to get into any of that stuff because I don't want to get into any of that stuff. But because I might ask a question that could get weird. So let me ask you this: what's your take on like the Nation of Islam and like Farrakhan and all these blacks that are like
Don't know
radical?
much about them, never really studied them or heard much about them, but we're for peace movement. We believe like the Sufi sect of Islam has a lot of the answers, where we bring people of diverse groups, everybody from different walks, come together regardless of your religion, and sit down at the table and let's work everything out. I think we can find more common with people than they know once they start listening to each other and talking instead of just barking and yelling, see who's the loudest. If we would listen, we can find out we have a lot of common things with people. So I don't know much about the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, I will say that I do think Taliban's a little based because of the simple fact that I don't think men should wear shorts out in public, and I heard that the Taliban will execute a man if they're wearing shorts. So I like that.
I don't know much about that either, to be honest. That's in Afghanistan, so I don't know how they run that show. We know they're a dictatorship and they're very bad, and they kill people and they suppress women, they suppress freedom. So they don't have a good record. They're not very nice people.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just kidding around. All right, so what do you say to like these things that happen in San Bernardino, the Islamic, these shootings that happen in synagogues and churches, and it's supposedly Islamic terrorism? What do you say about that? And why don't, like I said earlier, why don't more Muslims speak up about that and speak against it and denounce it like we should Ilhan Omar?
Yeah, first of all, we should denounce any violence, any killing, any massacre, any kind of killing and shooting. We should denounce. So we denounce all those. But I think those are being committed by different people from different backgrounds. So if Muslims did them, shame on them, they're not Muslims. If Christians did them, shame on them, they're not Christians. Whoever does any killing is a terrorist. So you can call them any name you want. They are terrorists and criminals. So we denounce them. And yes, more Muslims should be able to have a platform through the media to speak out. And we encourage the news media outlets to go and interview more moderate Muslims and conservative Muslims and people who have good views. So I encourage that 100%.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So what's going on? What's your information on the Israel-Palestine stuff?
That's another interesting subject. Obviously, I'm not from there, but in a short sentence, I would say there's two people, two different religions, but the same family. They're cousins, Ishmael and Isaac. The Jews come from Isaac, and the Muslims come from Ishmael. They need to learn to live together as brothers and sisters. They're cousins. We have to find a solution. I agree with the two-state solution, meaning two countries for two different people side by side, and hopefully they'll learn to live with each other and trade with each other and build with each other and have nonviolence. Because at the current rate, it's going nowhere but down.
Now let me ask you
We
this:
cannot-
Is it true? Is it true that like videos of Osama bin Laden and all these terrorists, before they like do some sort of crazy act of like cutting someone's head off, in their speech, which I don't know Arabic or whatever they're speaking, but are they before their is their main issue with America their support for Israel? Because I've heard that like a lot of the Osama bin Laden, Saddam, all these speeches that they would give, they'd have a big disdain towards Israel, specifically with America. Like that has been their issue. And my second question to that is, before Israel got switched from Palestine or whatever happened, was there this type of animosity with the Middle Eastern countries and America?
Good question. I think those people that use that's just an excuse. It's they use it as an excuse, but they're terrorists, so they're going to say anything they want to say. They're criminals. So they want to blame Israel, they want to blame America, they want to blame whatever. They're just outright terrorists trying to just do their act. So they might use that as an excuse, I believe. As far as before 1948, when it switched from the name Palestine to Israel, there was not much news about all this. I think the Jews and the Palestinians were living side by side. By the way, a big population of the Palestinians are Christians. People don't know that in America. You find a lot of Palestinian Christians who are living in Israel. So before that, I think everybody lived together, and I think they can live together. I think they can all live side by side. Neighborhood. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have Israeli friends. We talk, we go out, we eat. There's no problems. People have no problems. It's the politics. So I think at one point we need to get the Palestinians to stop fighting and throwing rockets at Israel and harming innocent civilian Israelis. And Israel needs to give them some freedom and maybe find a solution to give them some of the land and get together and make it one big happy family, because they can live side by side. It has been done in the past. They can do it again. But the guns have to be laid down and people have to talk. So we look forward for a peaceful solution.
Let me ask you this. Now, I will say this. I will agree with this, that I think in America specifically, I know that there is this like, Judaic Christian bond that is told, specifically on the conservative side of things. But I do kind of disagree with it a little bit because, yeah, they both have the Ten Commandments and they both have some similarities, but it really is an oxymoron in a lot of ways, because Christianity's really about Jesus. And not only do they not accept Jesus, they think he's burning in semen and hellfire, according to the Talmud. And to kind of say that, it's Judaic Christian country and that it's okay when they have that type of disdain for Jesus Christ, to me, I don't really understand or agree with it, especially when we're making Islam or the Muslims the number one enemy, which I'm not sure if that, I don't know, but at least the Muslims and Islam has some reverence to Jesus. We don't have time to get into the differences, but at least there is, you say he's a prophet, obviously you don't believe he's a son of God and different things like Christians do, but there is still a appreciation for Jesus. There's, like I said, they refer to him as a prophet. When the Jews say he's burning in semen and hellfire. So I think that it is a little strange that we are locked into this relationship with Judea and with Jews, but we have this disdain for Muslims when the main thing should be Jesus Christ. And there's a huge difference in how they feel about him, and at least Muslims do, What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting subject. Like you said, this may not be the forum or the time, but It's funny and interesting that all three religions, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, have one thing in common. And you know what that is? Jesus. They all center around Jesus Christ. In Islam, he is considered the Messiah, the Word of God, the Spirit of God. It's in the Quran. He's mentioned with those names. The Messiah, the Spirit of God, the Word of God. He's all those. And the Christians believe he's, of course, the Son of God or God. And the Jews are waiting for the Messiah to save them. So all three of them agree on a central figure that's to come, the Messiah, the Moshiach, the Masih in Arabic. So we believe it is Jesus. We know he's coming back. We are expecting him back as Muslims. So I think in time, the Jewish nation will recognize that is the same Jesus, and they will follow the same Jesus. So I'm not sure where the differences is, but I think in the end, we're all going to come to realize it's the same Jesus, the same Messiah. We're all waiting for him, but everybody understands him from a different angle. It's like a mountain. Everybody's looking at the same peak, and they're all looking at it from different directions. So they see a different terrain. Going up, they see a different climb. But at the end, when they reach to the mountaintop, they find out it's the same mountain and the same mountaintop. But they took a different path.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's interesting that people will keep saying, especially Christians will say, well, they're the chosen people. You know, it's in the Old Testament, they're the chosen people. But I think that...
And the Quran, by the way, says they are the chosen. God says, I chose you and I preferred you over other nations. So they have a legitimate right to that land. They lived in that land. They belong in that land. But they're also supposed to share it with other people. And hopefully in the future, they will share it.
But Israel is not a place anymore. Israel is inside of us. We are Israel. As Christians, we know now that it's a inner thing, and Israel is all of us. And if you don't ride with Jesus, you're not the chosen anymore. The new chosen are the people who have accepted Jesus Christ. They're not the chosen anymore. They're really cursed, kind of. Because the new chosen is ones who follow Jesus Christ. What do you think about that?
Interesting. Don't know much about it, but very interesting.
All right. Last thing, real quick, because I will say that it is interesting too that, like people like Glenn Beck, they can write books saying that the problem is Islam. One of the titles of his books is that, like, it is about Islam or something like that. I don't know if you know about this book.
No.
Well, anyway, his whole book is like about Islam is the problem and everything. And that's fine. He should be able to write that. I agree with that. But if you write Jews are the problem, you can't. If imagine if someone wrote a book like that, like Jews are the problem. And that's essentially what Glenn Beck wrote about the Muslims. And so I think it's just interesting,
Yeah, I think we should not allow any hate speech of any kind against Jews, Muslims, Christians, because the religion should be respected. We should hate our problem towards the people committing the crimes, the terrorists, the extremists in any religion. Those people should be pointed out, called out, and that's who we should be calling out, not a religion or a people, not the Jews or the Christians or the Muslims, because they're people, a lot of decent people in all religions. So we have to look for the people who are the criminals or the fanatical group or the fringe people and call them out.
Yeah.
Make sense?
It makes sense. All right, and then last thing, real quick. What is this whole thing about multiple wives in Islam? A lot of people ask this. People in the chat are asking, what is this? Settle the score on the multiple wives concept.
So during the battles in the early days of Islam, when they used to have battles and warfare, they used to get into different situations to where there was orphans and widows. So they said, what should happen to all these women that were widows and they had orphans and children? So the Prophet said he was commanded by his God to allow the men to marry more than one so they can take care of the orphans and the widowed women so they don't stay with no income and no protection. So it was more of a social part of the social order than anything else. But more research has to be done. But it is permitted in the Quran, whether it's something that's even feasible these days. I don't think it is, but back in that society and that time frame, that was what they did.
Yeah, who would want 5 wives? Who can even handle one?
Right. One is enough.
What a mess. All right, well, thank you, Biggs. I wanted to tell you, too, when I interviewed Ted Nugent, I don't know if you saw it, but he told me that
Yes.
he had Thanksgiving dinner with the Army the Army guy who drugged Saddam out of the hole that he was living in.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he got a
Interesting.
box of his cigars. And
Wow, tell him to save me one. Tell him to save me one.
Yeah.
Would like to have one.
He said he wants to smoke one with you for.
Thank you, yes. Tell him hello and we'll go out to his ranch in Texas and have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Muslims going to Texas is dangerous, right?
There's a lot of Muslims in Texas. Muslims are good people, yeah.
Yeah.
And tell Jesse thank you and everybody at the show. Thank you for having me. Great show. Keep up the spirit. Let's find ways to unite America. One
Yes.
America united.
Uniting the races with truth. That's JLP's line.
I agree. I never heard them say that, but I like it. I like that. That's amazing. That's good.
Yeah.
Tell them I like that.
All right.
One people, one nation. Thank you very much. God
Thank you,
bless
Biggs. Love you, man.
Thank you. Love you guys.
all
Have a
right.
great day. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Love you. Bye. Bye.
Wow. What the? That was intense for the first go around there. There it is. I mean, we couldn't even really get to anything else. But next week, if you want to call in, we can talk about this. 888-775-3773. Next week will be the mother. Mama will be in person, in studio, and maybe with Mr. Sandman, depending on, what happens. But thank you so much. First ever show. Thank you to the father, Biggs. And we can agree to disagree, and it's still love. It's still... Oh, yeah, buy me a coffee. Buymeacoffee.com/WowHassan. It's up right now. I need it, guys. Oh, nice. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm dying. I need... The stuff I'm covering, it's going to be insane. If I don't get support, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? So, shout out to Sean. Shout out to the Anchor Baby coming on right now. I'm stepping on his time. We're doing an amazing outro. Beautiful freedom outro. It's just nuts. All right, let's go. Woo! Wow. Oh, wait.
Freedom, freedom, freedom.
I'ma find peace now. Every time they wanna